Welcome to the Voice of Truth. I didn't even say yet. He's already saluting people.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Good Wednesday to you.
Good Wednesday to you. We've been talking about this tribulation. Now, we got a wide swath that we have to cut right here. Going back, studying 70 AD and the fall of Jerusalem and all that. But I got to thinking the other day, I think you mentioned in our Monday a lesson about rattling the saber, rattling that sword and peace through strength.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Now, in my upbringing, that was a very popular term.
Yeah.
Even T-shirts made of it.
Yeah. And really, this has been going on since Cain slew Abel.
Yeah, it's nothing new.
It's nothing new. And that's how that whole system works. But looking at 70 AD, and a lot of Christians, they know about 70 AD. This is when Rome came in, destroyed the temple, millions died. This horrific time that we read about, that Jesus had spoken about in Matthew 24, I think Luke 19 or Luke 21, same kind of passages, right? But I had a question. So I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, and we're putting dates in here, and we're plugging this Matthew 24 in. This is this, and all of this other stuff. But here was a simple question: why in the world did Rome attack? I mean, that was, I go back and I said, well, what caused Rome to attack? Because Rome already had the city of Jerusalem. Rome owned everything. Mm-hmm. They were this great empire. So did they just wake up one day and say, you know what, guys? Let's go kill some Hebrews. No. There was a reason.
And a historic reason.
There's a historical reason here. So they had, since 63 BC, they had conquered that area. So, I didn't know what that big noise was, pouring down rain. Yeah, pouring down rain outside. Thought a heat pump was falling down. But, so I go back and I'm looking, okay, why did Rome attack Jerusalem? And they didn't just attack in 70 AD. So a little history here, if you will. I hope you guys can still hear us because it's pouring down.
Yeah, it's coming down pretty good.
I think I left my windows down. Would you run and check?
I can see it from here and it looks good.
You heard it.
At least the passengers.
But my seats better not be wet when I go out.
Well, sit in the passenger side and drive this way.
Yeah, like a mailman. Yeah. So, like I said, they captured Jerusalem in about 63 BC. And the Romans had set up their own king. And really, guys, in the Roman Empire, when they would conquer an area, a lot of times they would allow their king to stay there. As long as you recognize Caesar as the King of Kings. Yeah. That's where that term came, by the way. In Revelation, when John is writing King of Kings. Because Rome, this was against the backdrop. This is language that they used in that time. The King of Kings in their minds was Caesar. Because they would come in, they would take over an area, just like we do as a government. We'll take over an area and we'll say, well, you can have your president, but really, you answer to us.
Right. Or even in the United States, governor of this state, governor. Everybody's got a governor, which is basically king of the state, but they all answer to what? The president, which is king of kings.
King of Kings. Yeah. And all that, this is why, guys, it's the same thing of the Roman Empire, of the British Empire, all of these things. When you see this system, we do it today, we call it democracy. We're going to go over into the Congo, we're going to take it over, we're going to set it up, and we want to put in a democracy, like we did in Ukraine with the coups and all this, and we'll put in, as long as you answer to us.
Because we absolutely know what's right for you.
Because we'll rattle the saber, and we rule. So, guys, the same thing has been going on. So they had conquered Jerusalem, set up their client kings, and they had been ruling. Everything is kind of we say that's hunky-dory. It's not really hunky-dory.
Oh, no, not at all.
There's a lot of tension.
Because I can tell you this, I worked with a guy from Hawaii, and right, they're kind of separated from the rest of the continental United States, and they really don't like white Americans coming down there and usurping their authority there. They
Right.
really don't like it.
Right,
Right? I mean, they have their own way of doing things, their own culture.
right.
They're not real hip on us,
Right.
to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah. And you know, this was one of the things that the Romans would do. They would allow these communities who they conquered to keep their own religious practices.
So it was fear that kept them in check.
It was fear.
It certainly wasn't love.
No. So the peace that was in Judea was by the edge of the sword.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, they had built the Tower of Antonio right next to the temple. So if you become unruly, whoosh, boom, peace. Peace is kept. So the peace was always brought about through the edge of a sword.
And the Jewish zealots, they thought that's the way we fix this. We come at them with the same thing. We come at them with the sword.
Now, again, they were allowed to keep their religious views as long as they would say Caesar's King of Kings, and that Caesar, they had later deified Caesar, but the Caesar the current Caesar was called Son of God. Yeah. Because the Caesars that would die, they were gods. So the Caesars that were living were called Son of God. So this is where this terminology comes, guys. It's all of this language that Paul would use was against the backdrop of the Roman empires and their language. King of Kings, Son of God, all of these things. Because I go back and I look and, you know, the only term we will find in the Old Testament is Son of Man. Well, I don't think there's a term Son of God in the whole Old Testament. I don't think. I mean, you can check, but I think I looked at.
I know of one place.
Where's that?
When Nebuchadnezzar looked into the flame, when the three men were cast in, and he said, I see four. And the fourth is likened unto the Son of God.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But
Yeah.
which came exactly by revelation.
Yeah.
I mean, he was seeing.
Yeah. So anyway, you can kind of see what's happening there, and what it was, there became some friction, and there was oppressive taxation. Does this sound familiar? Friction, oppressive taxation.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah. And unwanted imperialism, and this kind of culminated in 66 AD of a Jewish revolt. And this Jewish revolt was successful. Now imagine you're a Jew at this time and you revolt and they put the Romans on the run. You know what they're thinking? God is on our side. I love the old Bob Dylan song. You know, God is on our side. God is on our side. We've put the enemies to flight. We've run them out. Woo, and they took over and they set up their own government, which had spread throughout Judea real quickly. And man, we've got it back. God is on our side. You know, now remember, this is 66 AD. 30 years earlier, Jesus has died on the cross. You've got the disciples going out and the apostles going out and preaching. Now, at the time, Nero is the current Caesar. So in response, Nero's now, you know, up in Rome. So Nero sends this general Vespasian to meet the Jewish forces, an endeavor that pushed the majority of the rebels into Jerusalem. Okay? And by the time they had done this over a 3-year period. Now, Nero dies, and Vespasian is pronounced the new Caesar. So he's got to leave. So as he leaves, now imagine this. Now remember when Jesus said, you know, when you see the city comes about and you know, don't, because what happened, they had pushed all the rebels into Jerusalem. Nero dies. Now we got to get a new Caesar. So he's got to leave. So now it looks like Roman forces are leaving again. Remember Jesus, Matthew 24 said, when you see this, get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Because this guy left, Vespasian left, he's going to be the Caesar, but he's sending another general, Titus, that's coming into the city that's going to take it over. Now, all of this is in April when Titus finally surrounds the city in April of 69. Now, what is going on?
I don't know about you, but I find that extremely interesting.
Yeah. Well, you can see how it all plays together. Now, what's going on in April? Passover.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going to Jerusalem that can make it, even though, think about this, even though the Romans have surrounded the city and there's conflict and stuff going on, they feel like if they can get into the walls of Jerusalem, they will be safe.
Mm.
And that God will recognize their commitment to Him, the Passover, that He'll bless them. And you know what the Romans did? They let them go in.
Of course they did.
They did. They let them just walk right on into the city.
And what did Jesus say? What did Jesus say when you see this happening? What do? What? Get out. Get out. Right?
Yeah.
Pray that your flight not be in the winter. Get out. Those that give suck in those days. He's saying get out. But what do? Oh no. God told us to come into Jerusalem at Passover, and everything will be well with us.
Mm-hmm. And the Romans...
Wow, how about that?
Yeah. And the Romans just allowed them to go in. Now, I want you to understand here, once they got in, this is in April of 69. Once everybody got in there, the Romans closed it off. Now nobody leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, inside of Jerusalem, you had the Zealots. You had many different factions. I would say this, many different denominations.
Yeah.
And they all were fighting over who's going to be in charge.
Pharisees, Sadducees, Zealots. Several.
Several going on. Okay, the Romans wouldn't let them leave. And as a matter of fact, the Romans allowed two things to take place there. Because, now remember, this had been going on from 66. Now we're at 69, 3 years later. And Jerusalem had seen a couple victories. And they run everybody out of Jerusalem. And now they saw Nero die. They're thinking God has done all of this. And now the Romans are letting us come in to the Jerusalem. Yeah, so in their minds are thinking God is on our side, man. And God's. So then after April, they shut it down. The Romans shut it down. Nobody else in or out. They closed. As a matter of fact, they were shoulder to shoulder around the city. No food, no water, nothing. Now they had a few cisterns where water could come in, but they shut them down. Now for several months, the Roman general Titus said, and you can go look this stuff up, there's no need for us to go in yet because the Jews are killing themselves. And he said, let them have it.
Doesn't it give new meaning to Jerusalem, your house is left unto you desolate? And as Jesus wept over the city, if I would have gathered you as a hen does gather root, and you would not.
Yeah.
Well, it gives a whole new credence.
Yeah.
Because they didn't listen to the words of Christ, which was get out.
Yeah. So the Romans let the Jews destroy themselves. Remember, from April 69 all the way up until August of 70 A.D. until they breached the wall and came in. So a year and a half of the Jews in there destroying themselves, starving, eating their own children, eating each other, burning their own bodies. The Romans wasn't doing this. The Jews were doing this to themselves. And you got to wonder why. Now remember, Paul had kind of set up back in Romans, I'm not only a debtor to the Greeks, but to the barbarians. The reason Paul had set that up, which was a racial slur to the barbarians, but it was a gut punch, if you will, to the Greeks, because he's going to have the same argument in the book of Romans between Jews and Gentiles, because the Greeks were a slur to the Jews, who looked down on everybody who was Greeks and called them dogs, Gentiles.
Right.
I mean, you guys don't have nothing. We got the oracles of God. We got the tabernacle. We got everything.
Right.
You see, so Paul is setting them up early in the book of Romans because the Jews were calling them second-class citizens. So just as the Greeks were calling the barbarians second-class citizens, the Jews were calling the Greeks second-class citizens.
It's almost like we bore the heat of the day, and you've made these that come in at the last hour same as us. You made us all on the same. You put us all on the same page. What?
Yeah.
How can that be?
Yeah. Just like we do today as good Christian people, we call those outside of second-class citizens. They're not saved. They don't have their card. They're what?
Heathens. I mean,
Heathen.
that's the word
Yeah.
we use instead of barbarians.
Yeah.
Heathens.
Yeah. Pagans.
Yeah.
All of those other racial slurs that we would use to go.
Yeah.
So to the Jews, their whole system here is coming to an end. And when Titus went in, he tore the temple down. They burned everything. They wiped it out. By the edge of the sword, they put it down. No more rebellion. And the only thing left over there in Jerusalem to this day is a part of the western wall of the temple, which is now called the Wailing Wall. That's part of the western wall. And there's cracks in that wall, and people will still yet today go up to that wall and they moan and they wail, and they will write prayers and stick in the cracks of that wall. And our Christian evangelicals want to go over there and rebuild that whole system. And it was a whole system based on blood and sacrifice.
Encourage it. I mean, Christian people will encourage that.
Yeah, because they don't know any other.
That's right. And they don't know any better, really.
No. And look, when we say this, and here's some more questions that follow. Was God punishing Israel for rejecting Jesus? Because Jesus is making the prediction in Matthew 24, like you said, when you see this, come out, pray that your flight not be in winter, pray that you don't with child, and all of these other things. Was Jesus prophesying? Well, yes. Was he predicting? Well, yes. But in what sense? Now, yes, he was Son of God, and yes, God had shown him. But it was as easy as day when you understand how the systems are. I can tell you what, when Jeff leaves here, Jeff is going to go right down and get on 19 right there and go, what is that, west or south?
Southwest, yeah.
Southwest. And I guarantee you, if he stays on that road straight, he's going to come to Bristol. I don't even have to prophesy because he's on that road. It's inevitable. When Jesus says these things, because of when you understand the system and how the system works, once the power had been taken out of their scapegoat mechanism, they had no other way to relieve the pressure that conflict causes, that tension, that competition causes, and that's why they began to destroy each other. They were still over here doing their sacrifices, and everybody was coming to Passover. They were still doing their lambs.
But something was missing, wasn't it?
The power of it was gone.
Yeah.
It had no more ability to bring peace. You remember the Hebrew writer says there's no more sacrifice. I mean, what he's saying is, look, guys, that's gone. We kind of read that
Not
like...
that you can't just keep going through the motions.
Right.
Now, you can. People keep going through the motions. I'm still going to take my lamb. I'm still going to sacrifice it. But the power was gone, wasn't it?
The power to relieve the pressure of the community was gone. It was gone. So that it didn't have its effect anymore because of what Jesus had done.
Right.
And so I want to set this system up so that you can see the system. You can see how the system worked. You can see how God had allowed the system, even how God had moved them. Go back and read here is Abraham. You know, what a strange statement. We just read it, we think, oh, we're looking at it in faith. God tells him to take Abraham. I mean, it's like God, coming to me and said, I want you to take Zach, your youngest son, and take him over there and crucify, or take him over there and sacrifice. What would you say? I'd be thinking, now that I know what I know, I'd be thinking, that's not God. Because I know God would not ask me to do that. He's not into that. But he comes to Abraham, and Abraham says, okay, what kind of crazy person are you, Abraham? Honestly, Abraham's a crazy person. He should have said, time out. He didn't. And we say, but yet here he is. We just read it like, oh, Abraham is father of our faith.
Now I'm getting really interested in where he's going with this. It's amazing to me that since he mentions that, Abraham pleaded for the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Pleaded. If you find this many righteous, will you not destroy it? If you find this many righteous, will you not destroy it? Over and over and over. Least it anger you more, God. At least you find 5 righteous. But when it comes to his son, I mean, think about that for a minute.
Now
I have to absorb what he just said.
Yeah.
I've got to get my head wrapped around that.
Here's the question: who did Abraham love? Abraham loved Ishmael.
Sure, he did.
If God would have said, "Take Ishmael," he'd have argued.
Wow, I mean,
because he wanted Ishmael.
He's got my wheels turning now.
He wanted Ishmael blessed, didn't he? He loved Ishmael.
He did.
Take Isaac. And God says, your son, your only son. Okay. I mean, we got some favorites going on. See, we never look at it from an anthropological viewpoint, from a societal viewpoint. We look at it from the Bible. It's on the page. God said, take him. And this obedient Abraham takes him. Abraham was a man with like passions just like me and you. Mm-hmm. He loved Ishmael. Ishmael was his boy. Just like Jacob, or just like Isaac loved Esau. I mean, he did. You know they did.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to bless Esau.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacob was the wimpy kid.
Mm-hmm.
He was the kid that hung around with mommy over there. Esau was the hunter. Guys, I'm a dad. I love when my kids go hunt with me. You take your kids fishing with you. You take your boy out fishing, man. Look at him. Look at him. He's holding up that bass.
Jacob had to deceive him to get the blessing.
He did.
Yeah, I mean, if he would have come in there and say, hey, I'm Jacob. No. Where's Esau at?
Where's Esau? Esau's making me some deer meat today. He's making me some venison. He knows how to cook it up, and it is so good. And Jacob, he likes green beans and lentils, and come on. I want some venison. Well, the same thing is going on here with Abraham. He loved Ishmael. That was his boy. But I just wanted you to see Abraham as a man, but what God is doing in this situation is moving them ever so subtly away from human sacrifice. Because the whole community that had come out of the land of Chaldeans, this is how they worship gods. They sacrifice their young, they sacrifice whoever. They're young, they're old, they're pretty girls, they're young boys, everybody. So, this is going to be a second class,
That's the way Abraham was raised.
It's the way he was raised. So, like I said, if God would have told him take Ishmael, he would have argued. He wouldn't have done it. But when he was to take Isaac, okay. Because guys, and listen, if you don't think there was tension between the two, after that event, they never spoke. There's no more Abraham said to Isaac, they didn't speak again. They did not speak. Now imagine that. But anyway, guys, some Bible verse. You can go check it out. But what God is doing in that is He tells him to take him up on the mountain and offer him as a sacrifice. Abraham does it. When he pulls his hand back, there's an angel, do thy son no harm. He sees a ram. So God moved them away from human sacrifice to appease the violence, the tension, and gave them animal sacrifices. And he moved them away. And what God is doing through that whole system of animal sacrifices that we're going to see listed out, through Jesus, he's going to move us away from all sacrifices. You see? So this whole system that's been in place here of sacrifices, in other words, when there's tension, when there's conflict in a group, let's break it down on a level here that we might more readily understand. There's conflict in a church. Somebody's got a different doctrine. Somebody said something. Somebody doesn't dress right. What happens? The church comes together and their peace is disturbed. And how they regain that peace is
sacrifice that individual.
Sacrifice that individual. And see, here's the thing.
And you might say, well, that's kind of rough language. But when you turn somebody out of a church, and you're saying they're no longer welcome here, let them go to the wolves.
Well, see, that's exactly what Paul was doing with him. Paul had letters of authority, and see, in our churches, we got letters of authority. We got our minutes, we got our rules of decorum, we got letters of authority like Paul did. And we can go around and, Jesus makes a statement, if you hate your brother, you're guilty of murder.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go around with rules and murder our brothers because they don't see doctrine like we do, or they do something different or something we didn't approve, or they broke some kind of rule that we had. And we, like Paul, like Saul of Tarsus, have to do good for God and keep keep all of the spotted lambs out of the field, and keep all of the goats out of the field and keep them run off. And we do that. We call it turning them out or whatever, but we sacrifice them. So what happens when we do that? Peace is restored, so to speak, in the church or in the community or in the country or wherever it's done.
Oh, I've seen churches rattle a saber. Uh-huh. So they don't have to really turn somebody out, but threaten it.
Yeah.
All you got to do is threaten it. Threaten that this is what's going to happen. If you don't make an about face or whatever, then peace through strength. There it is again.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of jumping ahead here a little bit. When I say that in Jerusalem it had lost its power, you see, guys, when you really see the scapegoat mechanism for what it is, it loses its power. The way that it continues to keep its power, just like when we talked last Friday about Satan casting out Satan. As long as you really believe that that's your enemy, and they have done something unjustly to you, they have wounded you, they have hurt you, then you will feel justified in your sacrifice. Mm-hmm. You will feel justified in turning them out. And as long as you do that, then it has its power. But once you see it for what it is, this is why Jesus, this great statement, he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. Wow, that sucked all the juice right out of it.
Yeah.
And he would have said, guys, y'all going to pay. Guys, I'm going to get you. They would have been, see, we had to get rid of him. But man, all the juice was gone. All the power was gone out of it. Father, forgive them. Now we're told to go and forgive.
Right.
Because we're all in this state where we all owe a debt to this violence because we have participated in this violence our whole lives. It's all we've ever known, but Jesus didn't. And now what changed was we got an innocent victim. We never had one before. That, my friends, took everything away. Now we got an innocent victim. Now we're all guilty of scapegoating an innocent victim. So we have no authority, no right, no power, nothing to scapegoat ever again.
Amen.
We don't.
That's right.
We don't. This is why the Gospels would be full of words like forgiveness and don't let a root of bitterness come in and where many be defiled. All of these malice and all of these things because they keep us in this scapegoating system. And guys, what happened with Jerusalem was that was gone. And they began to fight amongst themselves. It was gone. Now hence, once this power is taken away, man, we're thrust right into a tribulation.
There it is, ain't it?
We're thrust right into a tribulation.
Yeah, because everything we knew, just like they did, their temple was gone. Now I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm lost. I'm kind of lost.
Yeah.
Because everything I thought I knew is all upside down now.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to continue this. Tune in Friday and probably the following week and the following week. So anyway,
God bless.
Lord bless. If you've enjoyed this clip, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and tune in next time. And we're going to keep pumping these shows out for you. So, Don, any parting words?
Just keep tuning in.
Keep tuning in. Amen. Lord bless you all.